Hey everyone, so yeah, no, this is ranking the top five players in terms of Super Rugby. Again, this is the second time we're doing this so far. A lot of you liked the previous edition we did for winners. I'll leave a link in the description below, of course. But of course, to my right here, we do the likes of the Kiwi lads joining us once again. So first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, mate. Of course, as the competition goes on, our original rankings could be very wrong depending on what
Yeah.
happens in the later stages of the comp. But I think overall, we did a decent enough job with the wingers. Now the centres, it's a little bit more tricky because we haven't actually seen that many centres scoring tries throughout the Super Rugby Pacific competition. When you look at the numbers, it's actually quite low, but there are still some standouts who hopefully we'll have some double ups of throughout our top five.
Exactly, exactly. But yeah, no, I'll let you kick it off. Really, just what is your number? I guess your number five position. So we're obviously going from five to one. What is your fifth place position for this top five?
Tell you what, there's been some hard decisions made throughout this list. As you guys know, I'm very bad at making decisions, and this top five has been no different. I had a list of about 14 players that I had to cut down to just the five. Number five for me, though, I have actually gone with Anton Leonard Brown. Now, I feel like his form recently has really helped move him up in the rankings. If this was based off the first three rounds, it might have been different, but I think what he did in that game for round four was absolutely phenomenal. So I gave
Yeah,
him that little bit of an edge. He's had 16 defenders beaten throughout the Super Rugby Pacific season, and I think something that makes him stand out to me, as opposed to some of the other centres throughout the competition, is the hard meters that he has to
yeah,
make, and the fact that even though he hasn't made a huge amount of meters, like 133 is still pretty decent for the amount of game time that he's had, but he's also just been able to bulldoze his way through some very tough challenges to then create opportunities. Five offloads as well. He's had four clean breaks. I think that he's had a very good season. It's a shame about his head knock, so of course, maybe a couple weeks more. If we had done the centres in about week six, it might not have been the same. But for current form and the way that he's playing, I've gone with Anton Leonard Brown.
well, to our surprise, we actually have the same player in that fifth position. I have also gone with Anton Brown. Again, literally for the same reason that you've said. I think he's had a good start, I'd say, throughout the season for the Chiefs. Again, the Chiefs have been pretty good when you look at the record. But again, he's been a big part of that. And I think it's one of those where that center combination is always kind of up for grabs, I think, particularly for the Chiefs, because they have so many good centers there with the likes of Pohipi, Rona, Anton Brown, of course, and Quinn Tupaya now back. So there's a lot of competition there. But Anton Brown, of course, is just seen as a clear favorite, and the reason for that is just because he's very consistent, and that's the one thing that's the reason why he still gets selected for the All Blacks for this long period of time that he has, because he's a player you know is going to give you at least like a 7 out of 10 every single time he's on the field, and that's what you want from a player, really. So yeah, again, like you said, he had a really good game kind of last week as well, so that kind of elevates him a bit. Again, similar to you, there was another player I was considering to put in this fifth position, but I had to leave him out because of just for Anthony Brown. Yeah, he's just consistent. You want that within a player. So yeah, he's also in
And
my fifth position there.
who was that player out of curiosity?
I'll mention at the end. I'll mention at the end because there's a
Okay,
reason why.
fair enough.
But, look, in terms of the fourth position, however, this is actually where I've gone with Julian Sevilla. And again, I think Julian Sevilla has been a big player. I think for the Moto Pacifica this year. I think again, this is his first year for a different team besides the Hurricanes in Super Rugby. So it was kind of I'm not going to say it's a big adjustment for him because again, most of their games obviously are being played within New Zealand anyway. But still, it's kind of a change in terms of where he's playing because again, he's in center now instead of what he normally plays at the wing. And I think he's been really impressive because I mean, going up that first game against the Highlanders, he was indestructible really in that game. He was just bulldozing his way through the Highlanders kind of back line, just gaining meters for them. And he's done that within the game against Fiji Endura as well. And of course, he got that try to kind of break the record for Super Rugby as well in terms of top try scores. So yeah, I just felt that this season alone, he's had a really good start towards, just really good start to his career in terms of Moto Pacifica. So I had to give him a shout. But yeah, in terms of for you, like, what's your kind of fourth place player in that spot?
Very good pick. Now, for me, I have actually also gone with a player who originated out on the wing, who has taken on the centre role for this season, that being Filippo Dalgunu. Now, he's a little bit of a tricky one, and I think he would have ranked a little bit higher for me had it not been the fact that one of his best games he actually played out on the wing for the
Yeah,
Rebels. In that contest, playing left wing, he got himself two tries, 81 metres carried, 4 defenders beaten, couple clean breaks, the drill. But still, in that centre combo, he has had some brilliant work in the breakdown. And I think that is why he gets that little bit of an edge over some players, actually getting himself 5 turnovers, 1. And that can be absolutely crucial. This list, of course, can be extremely hard to pick, depending on what you like in a centre. Some people like a centre who tackles a lot. Some people like the ones that make the meters, that beat the defenders. But for me, Filippo Dalgunu is something a little bit different because he's only made 12 tackles. But in those 12 tackles, he has got 5 turnovers. So the fact that he's been able to get in there, rip that ball away, I think is extremely crucial. Of course, some of those tackles have not been made by him. He's just come in and got the little bit of a cherry on top. But yeah, very impressive from Filippo Dalgunu. Also had a new side in the Melbourne Rebels. So very similar picks in some regard for our number 4. But number 3, I'm not sure whether we'll be so similar. This one, I have actually also got a Reds player. He is the leading centre when it comes to tries scored. You'll be surprised that I've only got him as number 3, but there's a little bit of reasoning behind it. But that is Josh Fluke. 4 tries, 184 metres carried. He's had 5 defenders beaten. He's made 34 tackles, so he's a bit of a workhorse when it comes to their midfield combo. And he's just had a very strong season start for the Reds so far. Now, it's very hard to explain why I've got him at number 3. If he's got 4 tries, he's actually way ahead of anyone else in the centre combo. I assume he's going to be at least in your top 2, maybe not even that top spot. But I've gone with him at number 3. I'll say, in fact, who's your number 3 first of all?
Well, before I get to my number 3, just wanted to mention that Felipe Delgado was the player I was considering in terms of like going that 5th pick or not. But again, like you said, it's exactly the reason why you said his best game was in the winger spots. That's the reason why I kind of discounted him in that list. But in terms of number 3 spots, this is actually where I've gone with Sam Gilbert. I think he's been excellent for the Highlanders. I think he's just been a player which, again, he's one of those players where, yes, he's been playing at center, but you can see him really more as like a fullback kind of /10 in a way, because he's really the playmaker of this team. Like him and Reece Patchell just kind of going in and out in terms of that 10 and 12 position. It's kind of similar to what England do in a way in terms of their setup. But I think Sam Gilbert's been really impressive this year. I mean, in terms of points, I mean, he's at the second most amount of points this season so far with 41. And again, he's had some good tries. I mean, he had that, I think, arguably, I would still say the try of the season so far still goes to him in terms of that game they had against the Mod Pacifica. But yeah, look, he's just a crucial player towards what they do in terms of the Highlanders set up there. And again, that combination he has with Talea as well there in terms of that 12-13 combination just looks really balanced, I think. So yeah, I think he's a really good start towards his Highlanders career. Again, last year he really was like, I think, the rookie of the season. If there's like a reward you can give out, like he was really good for them last year, and he's kind of just building onto that going into this season. So that's the reason why I've placed him kind of in the 3rd spot here, because I think he's been really good, and I've been really impressed by him. So yeah, he's my 3rd option. But yeah, again, this is where the top 2 comes, and it's difficult because I feel like I've gone back and forth with this guy. So this is the one I just couldn't decide if he was 1st or 2nd, but I've made kind of like an executive decision here, and I've gone with Josh Fluke as my 2nd pick in terms of the order. I think he's had an impressive season for the Reds. I just think he's one of those players who, like you mentioned already, he stood up for them, and he's a player which you wouldn't consider him being the player of like who's at the best start really for the Reds, I'd say, so far this year, because it's really between him and I'd say Frizz McWright, I'd probably say, are the 2 best players, I think, from the Reds so far. And again, like you said, he's had 4 tries. He's just been all over the place. He's just clinical. He's definitely making a name for himself and putting his kind of name in the hats really for that Wallaby selection, I think, as well. So he's really just put himself in a good position early on this season. He's just been, yeah, like it's impressive. And like you said, there's not a lot of centers who have scored tries so far this season, and he's 4 of them. So it puts him up in that conversation immediately. But again, also I'll go into my number 1 pick after you, but there's a reason why I've gone with this player ahead of him, and I'll explain that a bit more later. But again, for your number 2nd pick, who have you gone with in terms of this top 5?
Well, this is actually where Sam Gilbert comes in for myself. Yeah. So I did actually originally have Josh Fluke 2, Sam Gilbert 3. but I did make the executive decision to make that little bit of a switch. The reason being, I think that Sam Gilbert, he offers something very different to Josh Fluke, and that is in terms of that kicking aspect as well, with the fact that he has got those 41 points on the board for the Highlanders. Has also been able to get himself 49 tackles, which is almost at those numbers that we're seeing in terms of the top 10. So I had to give him some sort of shout out for that. He's also had 4 turnovers, 1. He seems to get at least 1 a game, or in fact that would be 1 a game, seeing as they've had the 4 matches. That over the 100 metres carried. I think he's just been a very solid member of this Highlanders side. You know, there's been a couple other standouts, but I would say the thing that slightly put Josh Fluke just a little bit further down was the fact that the Reds overall as a cohesive unit have looked very impressive throughout the season, and the Highlanders, they have had some very good moments as well, but I still feel like the Reds, in terms of their whole backline, when you look at those guys like Paisami, Pataya, McDermott, Tom Linus having a great season, like there's so many guys who are contributing to the fact that the Reds are doing so well. Like the fact that they're on second in the table and almost could have been first if they had beaten the Hurricanes. So, yeah, I did decide to go with Sam Gilbert for that kicking, as well as just the fact that he is shining in a backline that already is shining pretty decently.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. I was worried there. You're saying the Reds. It's like, is Sam Gilbert in the Reds? But no, I mean, he's just been excellent for the Highlanders, so I understand that fully. But again, it seems like we have the same number 1 here, and I'm going to let you talk about
it's going to be a big mistake, isn't it?
It has to be. I mean, it's Massey. We can be very clear on that. It has to be Massey. Like, he has been incredible, I'm saying, so far. Again, he was excellent last year. No. Don't tell me Massey isn't your player.
No, I just have a question, Tim. I want to know how much this last weekend that we've just had influenced your number 1 pick, because I would argue that if we count it before last weekend when he got his 2 tries and had 100 or so metres up against the Chiefs, I would argue that maybe Josh Fluke would have taken their number 1 spot.
I agree with you. If this didn't happen in terms of what we saw last week against the Chiefs, then yes, that could have been reversed. Because again, you could also say the same thing with Josh Fluke. Like, he scored 2 tries as well, so he definitely still put his name in the conversation. It's just more that Massey, like, he's just more of an if you think of like the 2 sides in terms of the Queensland Reds and the Fijian Dura, the Fijian Dura rely heavily more on Massey than what Josh Fluke does, like when Queensland does for the Josh Fluke, because in terms of the sides, it's just the expansive rugby that's kind of free-flowing rugby really that the Fijian Dura play with Massey. He's just exciting to watch. He's just electric. He just gets around players of ease, and he just latches on the clinical moments in terms of like finding that ball and just scoring a try. Like, he's just so good at doing that. So I mean, that's the reason why I've put him at the number 1 position. Again, like, if you look at like defenders beating as well, I think he had was it 19 defenders beating this season so far.
14 more than Josh Fluke.
It just shows you like he can just get past players of ease. So it's just one of those where I love that within a player, and that's kind of the reason why I go with number 1. Again, I know obviously like I said before, it was a very difficult decision to go between him and Josh Fluke, because I really think it's a flip of a coin, but I think Massey is just more of an important player for the Fijian Dura, and because he's stepped up so far this year, the Fijian Dura look like they're going to be a good side once more going into this season, and he'll be a big part of that. So that's the reason why I've gone with him ahead of Josh Fluke. But let me just make it clear, Josh Fluke, if he continues having the season he has, then I would not be surprised if he starts in that 13 jersey for the Wallabies going into this year. But yeah, tell us all about what you think about Massey, man, because yeah. It's the second week in a row you've chosen a Fijian Dura player. So
I know people are going to start calling me a little bit biased, aren't they? I'm glad you've done it as well, though, because then we can both get called biased rather than just.
Don't worry, I'll choose some more Blues players in the meantime. So it will be.
They're making it pretty hard for you to pick them at the moment, aren't they?
Exactly.
They just need to start playing some good rugby. Exactly. But except for Massey, of course, he knows a thing or two about playing good rugby. Got himself 2 tries in that game up against the Chiefs. Had himself 109 metres carried in the game up against Moana Pacifica, and only the 9 carries as well. That is something that has been extremely impressive, is the success rate when it comes to metres made. Like, he averages about 8 or 9 metres per carry, which is one of the highest in the competition for the amount of carries that he's had. 287 meters carried, 100 more than Josh Fluke, 150 more than Anton Leonard-Brown, and 180 more than Sam Gilbert. Like, that's a whole rugby field and some. Of course, almost a whole 2 rugby fields. But yeah, just a very clinical player. Do you want to hear a little bit of the list of players that we've had to miss out of this top 5? Because, of course, I mentioned I have about 14.
Yeah.
But there are some great players.
I'll tell you who I had as well. Name your list.
Okay.
You have obviously the list with you.
For the Fijian draw, of course, if he had continued playing the way that he did in the first few weeks, Apasalomi Vota was definitely going to be worth a bit of a shout. I think that Hunter Paisami started the season pretty well for the Reds, although unfortunately due to that injury did lose his momentum and probably
that's why I didn't include it in my thinking. But yeah, like the shout,
Joey Walton for the Waratahs. I think that he's actually been a little bit of a dark horse, someone that not really anyone really knows, but him alongside Isaiah Parisi, a little bit of the same boat, except Parisi's done the opposite of what Paisami's done. He's found his form very recently, a little bit similar to Anton Leonard-Brown. Of course, I've got the bus there, Len Ekatau, Billy Proctor. Tell you what, there's some great players that we could have put in this list, Tim. Like, 5's just hard, isn't it? Hamish Stewart, I think, for the Western Force has actually been one of the best players for them, even though they've been struggling. But then saying that, when you're playing well in a team that's looking not great, of course, you're always going to look like a superstar. And then, I also had Tamati Tua on there just from what he was able to do coming off the bench for the Brumbies and now getting that start alongside Harry Plummer, who I actually think has had a better season than some people would give him credit for.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he's been all right. I don't think he's been terrible. I would pick him over Rico at the moment in terms of what we've seen in Super Rugby so far.
Yeah, because Rico hasn't been able to do much. And again, he's out for another week. So it's just,
it can't really last game. That didn't help.
Yeah. And you can't even include Geordie because he just hasn't had that season in which you kind of expected of him. And again, I think if I had to say 3 players I was definitely considering, besides the ones that we've mentioned, like I definitely was obviously considering Filipe Dunganu because he was the player I was really going to contest in that 5 spot, in my opinion. The other 2 was, I would probably say it was, I'd say Tanelu Talea actually from Highlanders. I thought he's had a good season for them. And Leonard Guitar is just always a great player. But I wasn't actually, I was thinking more Joey Walton, to be fair. So I think those are the 3 I was always considering in that kind of top 8, if you want to say at least, or top 9. But again, there's a lot of good picks, but again, that's the top 1 we've gone with, guys. Obviously, let us know in the comments what you guys think, because that's the most important thing. We want to see what you guys think in terms of what your top 5 is in terms of Super Pacific Centers for this season. So just remember that current... So far. But it's obviously for this season alone. So just keep that in mind. But again, like the video, guys, because we did great in the last one. So keep liking it. Click the like button, guys. Make sure to obviously check out the Kiwi lads. I'll put his channel obviously in the link in the description. Make sure obviously to check out the video we did before. I'll leave a link in the description as well for that, for the Wingers one. And besides that, guys, hope you guys have a good week. And see you guys next time.